My mother's voice, usually a comfort, was a hammer blow. Damon, Cassandra just called me in tears, saying you've been neglecting her. The phone felt like a live wire, neglecting her. We'd just spoken, ending on I love you. The lie was a physical shock, but it was also a familiar, sickening echo from our past. Just minutes before, the scent of fresh ink and possibility had hung in the air of my study. Before me, spread across the oak desk, were the blueprints for what was supposed to be our future. The house I was designing for myself and my fiancée, Cassandra. Every line, every measurement, every carefully considered window placement was a testament to my love for her, a physical manifestation of the life I envisioned us building together. I'm an architect, I build things to last on foundations of logic and truth. I thought our relationship was built on the same principles. A subtle crack in that foundation had appeared just last week, small enough to ignore but sharp enough to remember. I had a critical project presentation, one that could define a major commission for my firm. I'd told Cassandra about it that morning, explaining I'd be home late. I texted her again in the afternoon, hours in advance, reminding her, don't worry about dinner, I wrote. I'll pick up that spicy ramen you love on my way back. Just focus on relaxing after your long day. When I finally walked through the door after 10 p.m., ramen in hand, the warmth of the apartment was met with a chilling silence. She was polite, but in a brittle, distant way that felt louder than shouting. The next morning, as I was grabbing my keys, I overheard her on the phone with her friend. Her voice, usually so confident and polished from her job as a PR manager, was laced with a theatrical vulnerability. He just completely ditched me again, she sighed into the receiver. It's always work first, it's like my feelings don't even register. I stood frozen in the hallway, the keys suddenly heavy in my hand. Ditched her? I had communicated, I had planned, I had tried to be considerate. But confrontation wasn't my style. I walked in, gave her a kiss on the cheek, and apologized for the late night. She accepted it with a magnanimous nod, as if granting forgiveness for a crime I had actually committed. I told myself she was just stressed, that her job in public relations made her prone to crafting narratives. I chose to believe the story I told myself over the one she was telling others. That she didn't really mean it, it was a mistake I would come to regret. This habit of hers, this subtle revision of reality, wasn't a one-off incident. It was a pattern, a web of delicate, almost invisible lies that I had spent months navigating and worse, making excuses for. The most glaring example had been a few months prior. My younger sister, Maya, had to undergo unexpected minor surgery. It wasn't life-threatening, but she was scared and my parents were out of the country. I was the only family she had nearby. The surgery was scheduled for a Saturday, the same weekend Cassandra and I had planned a getaway to a boutique winery. I sat Cassandra down a week in advance, explaining the situation. I need to be there for her, Cass. We can rebook the trip for next month. I've already checked and the hotel has availability. She'd placed her hand on mine, her expression a perfect mask of empathy. Of course, Damon, family is everything. Don't even worry about it, give Maya my love. I was flooded with relief, convinced I had the most understanding partner in the world. The lie revealed itself not in a confrontation, but on social media. That Saturday, while I was sitting in a sterile hospital waiting room, my phone buzzed with a notification. It was Cassandra's Instagram story. The picture was of a single, unused ticket to a new indie film, held up against the backdrop of a rain-streaked window. The caption read, "Sometimes plans are just made to be broken. Promises too." Immediately, comments from our mutual friends flooded in. What happened? Are you okay? Where's Damon? Her replies were masterpieces of ambiguity. Just a solo night, she wrote to one. Needed some me time, she told another. She never mentioned my sister, never corrected their assumptions. She let them believe I had simply, carelessly, bylaid on her. When I gently confronted her about it later that evening, her defensiveness was a brick wall. Oh my God, it was just a moody post, Damon. Why are you always so sensitive? She'd retorted, her eyes flashing. Can't I have my own feelings without you making it about you? It's not my fault your sister needed surgery. That was the first time I felt it, a profound, gut-wrenching sense of helplessness. It wasn't about the canceled trip anymore. It was about the chilling realization that in Cassandra's world, the truth was a malleable commodity, easily reshaped to cast her as the perpetual, tragic heroine of her own story. I was just a supporting character, and my role was whatever she needed it to be that day. The breaking point came on a quiet Tuesday evening. It was unremarkable, which made the betrayal feel all the more surreal. I had just gotten off the phone with Cassandra. The call was light, easy, the kind of mundane check-in that stitches two lives together. Did you remember to call the caterer back? I'd asked, glancing at a note on the fridge. Not yet, it's been a crazy day, she'd replied, a familiar note of manufactured stress in her voice. I'll do it tomorrow. No problem, I said warmly. Just didn't want you to forget, get some rest, I love you. You too, she'd said, her voice softening, good night. I hung up feeling a sense of calm contentment. This was us. Navigating the small stresses of wedding planning, ending the day on a note of affection. I was tidying up the kitchen, wiping down the counters, my mind drifting back to the blueprints in my study. I could almost feel the cool marble of the countertops I'd chosen for our future kitchen under my palms. It was in this peaceful, domestic headspace that my phone rang again. The caller ID read Mom's. Her voice, usually a source of unwavering comfort, was tight with an unfamiliar mix of concern and disapproval. Damon, honey, is everything all right? I leaned against the counter, still smiling slightly. Yeah, Mom, everything's great. Just got off the phone with Cass, actually. What? A heavy sigh came through the receiver. Don't tell me everything's great, Damon, she said, her tone sharpening with a protective edge I hadn't heard directed at me in years. Cassandra just called me absolutely beside herself. She was in tears. My smile vanished. Tears, what are you talking about? She said you've been giving her the silent treatment for days. My mother continued, her words tumbling out in a rush of second-hand distress. That you're ignoring her calls, not answering her texts about the wedding, just treating her like she's invisible. She said she feels so alone that she doesn't know what she's done wrong. Son, a marriage is something you have to work at. You can't just shut down on the person you're supposed to love. I stood frozen, the dish towel slipping from my hand and falling to the floor. The world seemed to tilt on its axis. My brain struggled to reconcile my mother's words with the reality of the last 10 minutes. I looked down at my phone, its screen still glowing. At the top was the call log, Cassandra Mobile 9 minutes ago, below it our text thread, my last message sent just half an hour before our call read. On my way home from the site, thinking about tacos for dinner, her reply was a single curt letter, K. The contrast was so violent, so utterly insane, it felt like a physical blow. A lightning bolt of pure, unadulterated clarity struck me, and in its flash, I saw everything. Every past excuse I'd made for her, every time I'd smoothed over her moods or dramatic moments, it all coalesced into a single, ugly truth. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This wasn't her being overly emotional. This was a calculated, malicious act of sabotage. She hadn't just lied. She had preemptively struck, weaponizing my own mother's love for me to frame me as a villain. She was poisoning the well, ensuring that when any real conflict arose, my own family would already be on her side. The game had changed. She had crossed a line so fundamental, so sacred that there could be no coming back. After I hung up with my mother, offering only a flat, toneless, I'll handle it, I didn't feel the explosion of rage I might have expected. There was no shouting into the void, no punching a wall, no heart-wrenching sobs. Instead, a chilling, almost unnerving calm settled over me. It was the calm of a building collapsing in on itself, all the chaotic internal structures giving way to a silent, settled pile of rubble. In that silence, there was absolute clarity. The ghost of every past incident materialized in my mind, no longer as isolated events, but as a perfectly connected constellation of manipulation. The Instagram post about the broken promise, the exaggerated stories to her friends, the way she'd twist my quiet, logical nature into a narrative of coldness and emotional distance. It was all a single, coherent strategy. Cassandra didn't just want love, she needed an audience for her curated suffering, and she would burn anyone, anything to keep the spotlight on her performance as the victim. She hadn't just attacked me, she had attacked the very foundation of my world, my family. She had tried to sever the trust I shared with my mother, a bond I held as sacred. The realization was liberating. I was finally free from the exhausting mental gymnastics of trying to justify her behavior. I was no longer the confused, accommodating boyfriend wondering if I was too sensitive. I was a man who had just been shown, with undeniable proof, who his fiancée truly was. And in that moment, I knew that arguing with her would be utterly pointless. To confront her would be to step onto her stage, to play a role in her next drama. She would cry, she would deflect, she would gaslight me until I was the one apologizing. You're twisting my words, she would say. I was just upset and needed to talk to someone. No, the only way to counter a narrative built on lies was to present the one thing she couldn't spin. The unedited, unadorned, objective truth. A plan formed in my mind, not born of anger, but of a cold, architectural precision. It was simple, direct, and devastating. I didn't text my mother back to defend myself. I didn't call Cassandra to rage at her. I walked over to my phone, my movements deliberate and steady. I opened the messaging app, my thumb hovering over the screen. I was about to demolish the beautiful facade she had so carefully constructed, using the very tools she had handed me. My first action was to open my private chat with Cassandra. Her last message, the dismissive K, stared up at me with a newfound insolence. I tapped the top of the screen, navigating to the chat settings, and selected the option to add participants. My thumb scrolled with purpose past friends and colleagues until it landed on my mother's contact, Eleanor. I pressed her name, A small system-generated notification bubble popped up in the chat thread. You added a leaner to the conversation. The group name at the top of the screen immediately updated itself. Damon Cassandra Aliner. The response was almost instantaneous. A blue typing bubble with Cassandra's name appeared, danced for a second, and then vanished. It was replaced by a single stark punctuation mark, Cassandra. She was confused, perhaps thinking it was a mistake. Good. I let that single question hang in the air for a full, deliberate 30 seconds, a silent overture to the performance to come. Let her wonder, let her feel that first prickle of anxiety. Then I began to type. My message was calm, formal, and utterly devoid of the frantic emotion she was undoubtedly expecting, the emotion she had tried to orchestrate. Me, Mom, Cassandra. It has come to my attention that there is a significant communication gap regarding Cassandra's feeling that I've been neglecting her. I believe the most efficient way to clear up any and all misunderstandings is to let the primary source material speak for itself. I didn't give her time to process that, to formulate a defense or a deflection. My thumbs moved with a methodical, relentless rhythm. I scrolled back through our private chat history, starting from 3 days prior, the period she had tearfully described to my mother as my silent treatment. I found my first message from that Monday morning. A picture of the sunrise over the construction site with the text, "Morning beautiful, thinking of you, hope you have a great day." I long pressed the message bubble, hit forward, and sent it to the new 3-person group. Then the next one, a link to an article about a new art exhibit I thought she'd like. Forward, my text from that afternoon, just got out of a meeting, exhausted. How's your day? Forward, her reply hours later. Fine. Forward, my message from Tuesday. Hey, just a reminder about dinner with the Hendersons on Friday. Should I confirm? Forward. The stark empty space where a reply should have been, marked only by the damning read receipt under my own words. I forwarded everything. The mundane, did you remember to take the chicken out of the freezer? The affectionate, saw this and thought of you. The logistical, my suit is ready at the cleaners, can you grab it if you're passing by? I created an undeniable time-stamped tapestry of my constant, consistent attempts at connection, juxtaposed with her terse, one-word replies, or more often, her complete and utter silence. The final act was the exchange from just an hour ago. Me forwarded on my way home from the site, thinking about tacos for dinner. Cassandra forwarded K. Me forwarded. Call you in a bit. Cassandra forwarded thumbs up. I then took a screenshot of my phone's call log, clearly showing the 9-minute call we had shared just before she had dialed my mother. I sent the image into the chat, a digital photograph of her lie. The evidence was all there, laid bare in cold, hard pixels. It was an avalanche of facts, irrefutable and damning. When the last message was sent, I took my final decisive step. I went back to the group info. I added my father, Robert. Then I added my sister, Maya. The group name now read Damon, Cassandra, Alina, Robert, Maya. The audience for her drama was now complete. Then and only then did I deliver the final line. It was not an accusation. It was an invitation. Me, Cassandra, my entire family is here now. Please, using the complete, unedited chat history I've just provided, feel free to explain to them in your own words exactly how I've been giving you the silent treatment. For a moment, there was nothing. The digital silence in the group chat was heavier and more profound than any I had experienced in real life. It was the silence of a lie being suffocated by the weight of truth. Then my phone began to vibrate uncontrollably. A string of frantic messages from Cassandra flooded the screen, a desperate attempt to regain control of a narrative that had been ripped from her hands. Cassandra, Damon, what the hell are you doing? Cassandra, this is private, you have no right. Cassandra, Alina, he's twisting things, you can't believe this. Cassandra, I was just emotional. I exaggerated a little bit, it's not a big deal. Cassandra, Damon, answer me. Her panic was palpable, but her words were like handfuls of sand thrown against a concrete wall. They couldn't stick, the evidence was too solid, too sequential, too complete. The first person to break the family's silence was my sister, Maya. Her response was simple and brutal in its validation. Maya, wow, just wow, good for you, bro. A moment later, a new message from my mother appeared. It wasn't addressed to the group. It was a direct command. Alina, Damon, call me now. Cassandra, we are deeply, deeply disappointed. I watched the words appear on my screen and I felt nothing. No triumphant glee, no satisfying sting of revenge, just a quiet, hollow sense of finality. The drama was over. The verdict was in. I had no interest in participating in the fallout, in listening to her excuses or my mother's apologies. My part was done. With a strange sense of detachment, I long pressed on the group chat icon and without hesitation selected leave and delete chat. Then I went to her contact card. I blocked her number. I blocked her on every social media platform. I severed every digital tie that connected us, creating an information black hole where her frantic apologies and furious accusations could find no purchase. I stood up from my desk, the blueprints for our future still spread out before me. They looked like plans for a stranger's life. I walked out of the study, grabbed my jacket and keys from the hook by the door, and walked out of the house I had been so excited to build for us asterisk. I didn't look back. A month later, the four of us, my mom, my dad, Maya, and I were packed into a familiar booth at our favorite old-school Italian restaurant. The air smelled of garlic and oregano, a comforting aroma from my childhood. The tension that had strained our family dynamic was gone, replaced by an easy, supportive warmth. My mother reached across the table and placed her hand on mine. Her eyes, which had held so much confusion and suspicion that night on the phone, were now clear and full of remorse. Damon, I am so sorry, she said, her voice earnest. I should never have doubted you, I should have known better. I let her play on my fears, and I'm sorry I wasn't a better mother in that moment. You were being a mother, I replied, giving her hand a squeeze. She just knew exactly which buttons to push. It's over, Mom, we're okay. My father, a man of few words but deep integrity, nodded firmly. You did the right thing, son, he said, raising his glass of Chianti. It was a hard thing, but it was the right thing. Maya, ever my staunchest defender, chimed in between bites of calamari. I heard she tried to spin the story to Sarah and Jen, she said, naming two of our mutual friends. Told them you had a psychotic break and publicly humiliated her for no reason. But the receipts, as they say, had already made the rounds. No one bought it. I found that I didn't care. Her life, her stories, her reputation, they were no longer my concern. They felt like news from a foreign country I had no plans to visit. I had already instructed my lawyer to handle the dissolution of our engagement and the logistics of the house. The project was canceled, the dream was dismantled, and in its place I felt an incredible, unexpected lightness. My focus had shifted entirely. I'd thrown myself into a proposal for a challenging, ambitious museum project in Lisbon. The work was demanding, the time difference a killer, but it was exhilarating. It was mine. I was building something new, not on a foundation of lies, but on principles of art, history, and light. I realized, looking at my family around the table, that I hadn't just dodged a bullet. I had liberated myself. I had walked away not just from a toxic partner, but from the version of myself who would tolerate being quietly diminished, the good guy who would absorb any slight for the sake of peace. I hadn't won an argument in a group chat. I had won back my own reality, my future, and the unwavering peace of my own mind.